Awesome. Well, as people join, um, I'm just briefly going to tell or introduce who we've got here, who's going to be doing some of the talking. So we have me, McKinley. So I work in Jordan in health and wellness. And Sherry, you want to say who you are?
Yeah, I'm Sherry Morris. I'm a school social worker. I'm actually still Jennifer Ludlow's school social worker, but I am moving over to McKinley's team and I will be an SEL specialist there.
Awesome. And Jen, for those that may not know you.
Hello.
So
Principal
Jen,
West Jordan Elementary. Yep.
there you go. Awesome. And Noah.
Hi, yeah, I'm Noah Koritz. I'm from Committee for Children, the makers of Second Step. I'm an education partnerships manager working with McKinley and Sherry and Jen here.
Yeah. Awesome. And then Val, who will be joining our team next year, is with us. So excited to have her.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So we'll record this and send it out as kind of a follow-up, but obviously with us all being kind of in the same district, in this together, this is not like a super formal webinar, but we did want to go through some of the content and some of our biggest suggestions and just to answer some of your questions if you are exploring purchasing Second Step through our grant, just so you have a better sense of what that will look like next year. But we want it to be less than an hour for sure. And because I know the weekend is approaching, you guys have been battling through the week, but also implementation focused. So we want to really hit on what has been done, what could be done, and what support will exist with Second Step for next year. So I'm just grateful for everyone that's here. And let's see. So this is kind of just a basic outline. We'll do a quick district overview. We'll talk about West Jordan Elementary, and then cover implementation strategies specifically related to Second Step. And we'll have Noah, who's been with Second Step for many years, kind of as the expert on Second Step. So first, I just wanted to give a quick, like 30-second shout out to some of the research on the impact of social and emotional learning. And I find it fascinating. This is kind of old research now. I mean, most people have seen this. But we start to see a lot of that spike in suicidal ideation, some of the mental health risk factors after this research was published. So even though this makes a case for the academic benefits of SEL, I think there is still much exploration and research needed to kind of justify the bigger impact of social and emotional learning, because there are a multitude of problems that we're faced with every day in our schools and that students are faced with. And even though we know that it's likely going to make academic impacts, it's more of like this zoomed out lens. It's going to make your students better people, and that includes better students. But in a bigger sense, better people and better able to confront reality. So, and this I actually got from the Second Step slides as well. But school-wide SEL, it really, at its foundation, improves people's relationships with each other, their relationships with the school, and overall school climate. And I think Jen had already seen some impacts on that, which she'll speak to with our West Jordan highlights, some of the climate impacts. And I know all of the schools that I've, that have really gotten behind it and have gone boldly forward have felt that school climate impact. So I just wanted to quickly kind of highlight a couple of things that we have on the horizon for next school year. With the Project Aware grant, which there are 3 more years left, we'll be able to purchase another round of school-wide evidence-based curriculum. And that will be for multiple schools. We have several schools, again, applying. We supported 16 schools last year in purchasing materials, but this year it's looking like about the same number. And well, I'll talk about our cohort, but we're going to have all of those 16 schools and any of our new schools. We're going to support with some cohort style throughout the year. We'll be doing cohort meetings just so that everyone that has done it or is doing it can kind of learn from each other and collaborate. So we'll reach out to all of our second step schools with that. We will also be able to have 4 social emotional learning and behavior coaches through Project Aware. So that's Sherry and Val are 2 of those 4, and we're still looking to fill those other positions. So this one, the good behavior game is it's very complementary to SEL. It's a little more behavior focused. So I look at it as the behavior side is the external, management, and the SEL is the internal management. And if you have them both working well together, you're going to really see some change. We'll continue to expand free district resources. We'll do a second round of the SEL Accelerator. We will have the cohort, which I already mentioned. I wanted to throw out there in what I've seen, and I can't say this is that I'm the ultimate authority on anti-bullying, but when we say we have anti-bullying programs, the research is pretty spotty as to their impact as a standalone program. But the impact of social and emotional learning as a broad school-wide program is pretty clear. So if we're saying we're doing anti-bullying, a lot of what that programming looks like doesn't make as big of an impact unless it's coupled with something school-wide. So that's kind of my plug. And Second Step does have an anti-bullying component, which we are hoping to offer to every elementary school, even if they don't have SEL. But I would argue that with the school-wide SEL is the way to go. And then just one last thought on the SEL updates. There's a lot of talk about moving in a restorative direction as a district. And I'm a believer that it's essential. It's not just that restorative practices and SEL work well together. It's you are not restorative unless you're teaching skills to students so that they can actually make changes. Positive changes. We're not restorative if we are punishing rather than teaching. And this is our big opportunity to do that. So, and then what's the COVID prognosis? There's a lot of talk and uncertainty about what next school year will look like. Again, this is just kind of my perspective, but it couldn't be made worse with SEL. Whatever next year is going to look like, I think any person and student and school is going to have some needs. And I don't think that it's going to make your school any worse by really investing in SEL. I think that we're at a time when families and students really need it. So, and then my last little piece, if you're looking at choosing a program, if you're looking at trying to figure out what this looks like for your school or for your setting, we took the time with several committees to develop this framework. It's based on the CASEL standards. We've kind of actionized a lot of the language here, but when I don't know, maybe even a year ago, when we surveyed schools to see what SEL program do you have. we got a lot of interesting answers to that. You know, people would say, we have the kindness club and we've got this, and not that those aren't SEL, but I think that when it comes to choosing a program, we want to look at the bigger picture of skills. It's not just telling kids to stay kind, but that we have targeted efforts to teach real skills, which I think this document is just helpful in naming the targets of what are the skills you're getting when you are implementing or using or doing SEL. So I think Second Step, as well as several other evidence-based programs, would address this bigger picture. But we've got to, some of the programs that are out there invest very heavily in one or two pieces of this bigger picture. And I think that it's important that we consider the self-management and the social management, because those are two different skills. And then there's the overlap, which this is kind of set up to represent that. The overlap is that in between on how the self interacts with others, the decision-making process. So any person in your school, every person in your school, let me correct that, is a part of teaching these skills. You know, lunch staff, hall monitors, every person can be a part of helping students develop any one of these skills. And that's what the most impactful SEL, and that's the thing that I like about this. As you look at it, you can recognize, you know, many of us are doing these things. We are teaching it, but how can we make it a little more intentional, and how can we hone it a little more clearly for our entire school and for every person in our school? So if you have other questions about the district overall stuff, I would be happy to answer them, but I wanted to take a lot of the rest of the time is really on people that have seen it in boots on the ground settings. Noah's kind of seen it nationally, and then I wanted to highlight West Jordan Elementary because they jumped on board before our grant. So I think Jen was going to talk about a little bit of this, and if you need me to switch slides, just say the code word. Do you know what that is? So just say something really strange, and I will know what you mean.
I see a lot of things that are really strange. I'm not sure if you can differentiate, but I don't know. Do you want me to start? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
So I'm a huge fan of Second Step. As he said, we kind of started it by happenstance before the district started talking about it, but I'll kind of tell you a little bit about our journey and why we like it so much. But I would say we've put in a lot of initiatives in this school since I came 4 years ago, and I think Second Step is probably one of the initiatives that's made the greatest impact on what's happening at our school. You know, my first year here, we had a lot of behavior issues and a lot of problems with fighting, a lot of problems with bullying. My entire afternoon was determined by what happened at lunch recess. And sometimes I was having like 5 and 6 issues and fights and problems happening at recess that came to my office. And it was really frustrating. It was really hard to know what to do. Eventually we kind of realized that our kids had some pretty serious skill deficits, and how do we resolve conflict? How do I make friends? If I don't know how to make a friend, I'm just going to be super annoying so that people pay attention to me. You know, I don't like what this person said to me, so I'm going to push them down. Just lots of stuff. And so, like, kind of like McKinley said, it was interesting when he said it, because I think we were the same. We just tried to hodgepodge it a little bit, right? We tried this and put this thing into place. Junior JAG Club, which for us is like Principals 200 Club. I can't think of all the things that we did, but lots of little things we did to try to reward good behavior, but we weren't really teaching them how to behave in a different way. So it was became really clear to us that first year when our school survey came out, and only 65% of the students in our school said that they felt safe from bullying. which meant 35% of my school did not, and that was unacceptable to me. We did a lot of teacher training on how to handle issues as they came up, and so things did kind of improve as far as coming into the office, but again, we just still had a lot of kids with skill deficits and not being sure what to do. So I went to the Title I conference, and I saw a couple of these SEL programs, including Second Step, and was interested and came back and talked to a couple people. And initially they kind of talked me out of it. They're like, oh, it's one of those things that you'll spend a lot of money on, but if your teachers don't do it, then you've spent a lot of money for nothing. So they kind of talked me out of it, but we kind of spent another year really struggling with issues. And so when I went back to the conference again, I specifically sought out Second Step at another company and talked to their reps and took samples and decided to bring it back to my school. And I thought, well, how do I get teachers on board? I get teachers on board by bringing them into the process really early. So I do have a school climate committee at my school, and I brought them together and we looked at Second Step and a couple of other programs and discussed their pros and cons and what did we feel served the greatest need. And for us, it was Second Step because we really liked the different skills that it focused on and the how to make friends, how to resolve conflicts, the anti-bullying unit. We just felt that that was the program that worked the best for us. So we went ahead and purchased it. And I'll tell you, one of the big things that really made an impact on us is we put somebody in charge of it at our school. So the first year we didn't have anybody right away, so we kind of loosey-gooseyed it a little bit. We did decide that in order to guarantee that this happened every day, we had to carve out time every day for Second Step to happen. So for us, it happens in the form of a morning meeting. So our teachers greet our students at the door with a handshake or a hello or whatever they choose to do that with. They bring them in, get settled quickly, and then they join them on the rug for their morning meeting. We like the idea of a morning meeting because we like the idea of creating a team, because you don't bully people that are on your team. And so we wanted to create like a positive classroom environment and feel. And then we use the responsive classroom format. So they come in, they greet each other, they share something, and then there's an activity portion. And for us, the activity portion is a Second Step lesson. So the lessons are about, I want to say 45 to 60 minutes for a lesson. So we break it up 10 to 15 minutes a day, 4 days a week. And then we use Fridays for catch up. And that's they teach those Second Step skills. So like I said, the first year we didn't start all on the same page. We kind of just gave every team the program and said, go ahead and start this. And here are the lessons. And so each teacher was teaching them, but kind of maybe not all in the exact same order. Some started with the bullying unit, some did it later on in the year. And then we did have a social worker come in, and she helped us to organize it so that we are all teaching the same things at the same time. But that didn't come into place till the second year. And I have to tell you, even after that first year of loosey-goosing it a little bit, our school survey came out, and we had gone from 65% of our kids to 75% of our kids, which was a 10% improvement. We were hoping for 2 to 3%. So we were very pleased that we had had that much of an improvement in how our kids felt about being at school. I think the other question was kids at our school resolve problems without fighting. And we saw an improvement in that as well. The second year we were more structured, and my recommendation to you is be more structured. Everyone started on the same unit. Everyone was going at the same speed. We were able to integrate it with other initiatives we have at our school. So for example, I told you we do the Junior JAG Club, which is Principals 200 Club. Kids get tickets for exhibiting a positive behavior. They turn those in for a prize, and then we collect them towards an activity. And so on year 2, we integrated the Second Step unit that we were teaching into, so kids got the tickets for using those Second Step lessons. And we were able to train teachers, and we did some training face-to-face, and we did some training individually where we gave them like a little punch card of the different units that we wanted them to watch on the second step training. And then when they completed all the units, we stipended them for doing that training. And then there was other training that our social worker, Sherry Morris, did face-to-face, like the bullying training and some of the other things. And it's just been really fun to watch. I was going to tell you a couple of fun stories. We had a student in my office. So first of all, we don't have a lot of office referrals anymore. Sometimes when one of them shows up to the office, I'm like, what are you doing here? We don't do things that get us to the office at this school. What are you doing here? And we've seen a huge reduction, but occasionally they do come in. And I had a student who was super upset one day, and I said, well, what do you think's going on? And he goes, I don't know, my amygdala just took over and I let it take control. And so that was something we had taught, I believe, that week in second step. And then Sherry told me a funny story about a kindergartner who was, I guess they were practicing for a play or something, and somebody got upset and she was like, no, stop, name your feelings, calm down, which is also something that we teach in second step. So we know that it's not just an initiative that we're doing as teachers that make us feel better, but that it really is having an effect on kids and changing their thinking about their behavior and helping them to be a little more proactive. And then, like I said, just teaching them those skills so we have a systematic way of filling in gaps that kids have in their social emotional learning. It makes kids feel better about themselves. It's made our school a happier and more positive place to be. And I'm just a huge fan. I think the important thing that we learned is that fidelity piece is huge. And there's a real power that comes with everybody doing the same things at the same time, so that it really is something that you can talk about as a school. And the assemblies have been great. It was a little hard for the student council at first because, you know, some of these topics can be kind of heavy to talk about, but they just did it in a really positive way. And I think kids responded well to learning it, not just from adults, but from children as well. And again, big advice would be, first of all, if you want it to be school-wide, get your teachers involved from the get-go, because that's been the other fun thing to watch, is watch that the teachers have adopted it as well, and it's just become part of who we are as a school. And if that's what you want, start with your teachers early, align as best as you can, and then carve out that time every day. I think that's, if any piece, one of the most important pieces is making sure that's how you guarantee that it happens. And then be present while that's happening. You know, be in their classrooms, go around, come to some of the lessons. My big goal as a principal this year is to integrate it even more into what I do here in the office, or if a child does come down with a problem, using the second step vocabulary even stronger. And I do have to say, the other huge benefit that I forgot to mention is the other problem we had is that there was bullying happening, but nobody was telling us. And we usually found out, but we usually found out because something terrible happened. And then we had to get involved. And I have to tell you that this year we had some things happen that were hard. And probably for the first time ever, kids told. They went down to Mrs. Morris's office and they said, this is happening in our grade level. And she was able to intervene and get that situation under control before it really, really exploded. And that's the thing we always tell parents, we can't help you if we don't know. And so that's been the other beauty, is that kids are telling us we do know, we can intervene, and we're not having some of these really ugly blow-ups that we've had in the past. So I say that's another really positive benefit as well. I love second step. If you're not sure what to do or you're curious about it, call me and I'll just talk you right through it. I think it's great.
And I will add, it has been really great working for a principal who's on the same page as far as the SEL program that we're using, and that could really champion what I was doing with the teachers and school-wide and involving student council. I think the only thing that didn't get mentioned was the home piece. Every unit comes with activities that can go home with the kids, and parents learn what skills the kids are learning so they can reinforce that at home. And I have had parents reach out to me and ask me for copies of home notes so that they can use the problem-solving steps and so forth at home. So It's just been really comprehensive and really a great tool for practically everything that comes up at
So
school.
we just send that home with our newsletter, attached to our newsletter. And we just, to make it easier for teachers and to guarantee that those letters went home, we printed those for them every month and then just stapled it to our newsletter and sent them home with them, which I think was helpful too.
Great. Did you want to add anything, Sherry, on these other slides?
Well, I will say that the other initiatives that Jen had in place, our psych gave all the teachers materials for a calm down corner in their own room. And the groups that we did and the classroom lessons that we did, we were able to stay within whatever the school-wide theme was in. So all of our programs and initiatives all supported each other. So that was nice to have that kind of continuity throughout the programs that were happening in school. And it was really fun to bring in our student council. Second Step comes with a lot of tools, and one of them is an assembly script. And we gave that to the 6th grade teachers who worked with the student council to put on those assemblies themselves. So they would spend some time the week before interviewing other kids or making posters or making up songs and, recording each other. So that was really fun. It was a fun way to get everyone involved in the skills.
Well, and I think Sherry said something that I realized too. I think having a social emotional program kind of grounds all your other initiatives. It gives it something for your initiatives to tie into. That's central, which is nice.
Yeah, and I love the idea of the student council, because I know some of you that are here are from middle schools, and the program looks a little bit different, but not that much, because like a lot of the tools and strategies are like you could still have your student leadership or your student council kind of take the lead on your theme and put together. So I love that idea that you used, Sherry. And Jen, and that your 6th grade teachers got behind it. And I've seen some of those videos, and they're really good. Just to see the students, their interpretation of it and teaching their peers is kind of a really cool way to kick off each unit. So
well, and kids look up to kids, right? So they see this group of kids that are in a leadership position, and they're doing the 2nd step, and they're stopping and naming their feelings and calming down, and then they're like, oh, it's okay for me to do that too, because I see that other kids are doing it as well. It's not just something that grown-ups are talking to you about, but it's something that they're seeing other kids do, and I think that's important to kids to see that.
And kids got rewarded depending on what unit we were in. And 2nd Step, kids would get rewarded if they were caught using the skills that were in that unit. So that was pretty fun too.
Awesome. So, and I guess you've kind of talked through a lot of this. I know you mentioned briefly how you trained teachers in those early days. You gave them like a punch card kind of a thing, and then they turned it in for a stipend.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is some training, and Noah will know more about this than I do. I think it's about 3 hours total, the things that I asked them to do, and I just put it on a little punch card, and they would check off what they did as they did it. And then when they were complete, that all went to Jen, and she paid them for their time, for their PD time. So,
and it wasn't a huge stipend, and I don't think it needs to be. It's not like I gave them in-service hours and however many hours it took them. I just paid them $75 is what I did. And it was about what'd you say, 3 or 4 hours of work?
3 hours, I think. And that's doing, there's a pre-implementation survey and those kinds of things. So those things are all included in that 3 hour punch card thing.
And then also when we did the training, I remembered this, whenever we introduced a new unit, Sherry would have teachers present activities that they could do with the unit. So it wasn't just her getting up there or me getting up there, but if we were teaching about, oh gosh, why can't I think of anything today? My mind's going blank on the skills, but if we were just teaching one of the skills, then teachers would get up and say, here's a couple of activities that you can do in your class. that has
from their grade level. And it was really fun to watch our teachers do like a second grade activity or throw a yarn ball at each other.
They did that as part of the regular already occurring faculty meeting, right? So it wasn't an added time or extra time. So you structured it so that they were already at faculty meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Then they got practice in the skill, so it wasn't like they had to go and read the manual. They had already felt familiar with it, and then they can use the manual to kind of enhance it. So
we do 2 faculty meetings a month, and one of them has a second step focus. So we kind of plan it around whenever we're starting a new unit, maybe a week or so before that unit, whichever faculty meeting falls in that spot, then that meeting we dedicated to second step, and then the next faculty meeting to anything else we were working on as staff.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, that way it feels not as daunting, for a teacher, because it's a hard job to be a teacher.
Well, and then they have the chance to talk to each other about what's going well and
yeah,
what they need help on, and so that kind of reinforcement is important. And what I hope to do with the training for second step next year for all the schools that will be second step schools is to offer a kind of parallel process where the trainers are trained and then they can go back to their schools and do these things all at the same time. So we have not just one school doing everything together at the same time. We have as many schools as want to do a cohort with us can support each other. So
yeah. So I'm going to go to our last implementation strategies kind of suggestion slide. And then I wanted Noah to highlight anything we've missed with second step, because we didn't want to misrepresent, the program. But the key strategy is wrapped up into that small quote, because that also applies to the students, right? We're doing this with our students, with our teachers, with each other, and we're shifting our mindset together, not, if you don't teach second step, you're fired kind of a mindset, which I know none of the people here would even go there, because you wouldn't take your time on Friday to be here. But it's not seen as with us if, a kit shows up on someone's desk and that's the end of it, except they're told you should do this, So it's kind of that mindset of how are we going to do this together, and problem solving and teaming. Just a few things that we've seen go well at the different schools that have tried it. The status quo bias, I think Sherry wrote that on here, so I don't want to misrepresent your idea, Sherry, but do you want to tell us what that is?
Sure. Sometimes we just get really comfortable with the status quo, and everyone knows this. And so it's hard to go with change because you're really comfortable with where you are, and you can start to justify that and think, well, my class is great. I don't need to make these changes. And so that's something to look for when you're working with your teachers, because you have to help them with buy-in. This is something Jen said earlier, was assigning a point person or a committee. I know she had the whole culture committee working on this. And then I was happy to help organize things, but really the teachers and Jen did all the work. So yeah, I think they made my job real easy. So
Jen's first day, I just handed her this and said, here you go.
That's awesome. Well, and I love that you took the collaborative approach with that, Sherry. It's
so important.
Yeah,
I think it's very important. You're not going to be as effective if everybody's not doing the same thing. And that's kind of what I meant by what is loose and what is tight, is you kind of have to monitor as you go who's loosey-gooseying it and who's really has their heart in it. And if someone is loosey-gooseying it, then there are some things that you can maybe do to help them buy in to what you're doing. But you have to be aware of where that's happening so that you can address it. And then SEL at home, I think we talked about the home notes and parents learning the skills and doing the skills with the kids.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we're ready for Noah. Do you want to, just highlight what we may have missed and what you'd like to share about the program? There are some middle school components on these slides as well. So.
Yeah, and first, let me just thank all of you for this wonderful work. I'm really excited for Jordan, and it just sounds like the program there at West Jordan is so fantastic. And honestly, so much of what I'm going to talk about is really overlap because they're really doing, it just sounds like you're doing such a great job, Sherry and Jen at West Jordan. So thank you so much for that. I'll tell you what, you asked for something weird for every single time we change a slide. I'll try doing a different food every single time. How about that? Okay, so we'll start with Snickers.
Snickers, okay.
Okay, so we've heard a lot about the professional development side of things through Sherry and Jen already. I'm just going to expand a little bit more on the other programming within Second Step. So with elementary, as they mentioned, we've got the modules online that can be done individually by teachers. There's also staff PowerPoints that exist in the resources section of the program, so that if you'd like to do training as a group, bringing teachers into this, again, is just so important, and being all on the same page is so important. And as you probably picked up from West Jordan, having the principal involvement throughout the school year is the most important aspect of making sure implementation works, and having a point person like Sherry to organize and make sure that we've got structure there as well and help with teachers is also so important for that process. So in terms of training, starting with early learning and going all the way through 8th grade, we do have modules that teachers will go through. It does change a little bit depending on the grade band and the unit. So for instance, for our child protection unit, which is early learning through 5th grade, and our bullying prevention unit, which is kindergarten through 5th grade, with which McKinley mentioned earlier, the training aspect of those programs is a lot more substantial because the teacher side of things, the adult side of things, I shouldn't just say teacher because the training is really for everyone at the school, is such a powerful and important component, obviously, of both child protection and bullying prevention, since we need to know what to do when we receive a report from students. We need to know how to look for signs of these things, that type of thing. And so starting with the admin for both of those programs, there's a training for the principals in order to set up or improve policies that exist already in the school. And then moving down into all staff, we talk about how to accept reports, how to look for signs, what to do with those reports. And then moving on into teachers, how to specifically teach the lessons, because again, we know for these things that we don't see every single time that bullying happens. And so, like the story that Jen was talking about at West Jordan, it's important that students know what bullying is, that they know that they should be talking to a teacher and when they should be talking to a teacher, but also how to self-advocate in those situations. And so the training goes through all of that and is very drilled down in terms of who does what training. And let's see. Also, we do have, it says there, ongoing consultation via phone and web-based meetings. We actually have a dedicated person for Utah. Her name is Julie Campbell, and she is a client success manager, and she works with individual schools to help with implementation plans. She's a fantastic resource, and I'll be coordinating with McKinley a little bit more on how that conversation will go, and if she's reaching out to you or you're reaching out to them, and we can figure that out as well. All right, I'm ready for the next food. Let's do Reese's Pieces. We get a theme going here. So both Jen and Sherry mentioned implementation with fidelity. Again, this is how the program is designed. Lessons are really just one of the components here. We really do think of social emotional learning as this sort of home It should be all-encompassing. It should be something that's not just happening with the lessons, but also in the hallways of the school. It should be something that is part of the culture there for it to be very effective. So we start with the lessons. These are typically once a week. Jen was mentioning that at West Jordan, it's a little bit different the way they do it, and each school kind of approaches implementation with fidelity in a different way. Also, much like West Jordan, it's very difficult sometimes just to pick up and start full blast. And so sometimes it will take, a year or two in order to get to where you want to be in terms of this fidelity. But we start with the lessons, which are typically once a week. And then we have daily practice, reinforcement skills, and finally that engagement with families that Sherry and Jen highlighted. All right, so next let's do Babe Ruth. So what we want to get to is teaching all of the lessons. These lessons are sequential. There are ways that we can move them around, but usually what we say is that within a unit, it's really best to start from the very beginning and make your way all the way to the end. If you'd like to move sort of units around, especially if you're using the bullying prevention, we do have pacing guides that will help you integrate. You might move some things around, but the reason for this is that within each unit, skills really do build from lesson to lesson on each other. These are 20 to 40 minutes once per week. And the reason for that kind of variance there is twofold. One is by grade it changes. And two, different students will be ready to talk about different things at different capacities. So let's say that we're going over something in a lesson that may be something present in the minds of the students because they ran into an issue like this earlier in the week. They may want to spend more time talking about something, and so it's good to have that extra time carved out during the week. I should also mention that one of the things that we always suggest is exactly what Jen kept coming back to, which was carving out time in the master calendar for teachers, because we need to give those teachers the space and time to do this correctly. And so what we suggest is having, 1 day a week where you've got enough time for a lesson, and then that sort of advisory if you're in middle school, or homeroom time if you're in elementary school, where they can do follow through activities throughout the week. All of this is included in the lessons. So these are fully scripted with explicit instruction. Once a teacher has gone through the training here, it takes very little to prep. So all of the prep notes there are on the left in gray. And then to the right, there's the script, and then the follow through is all there in the notebook that they get along with this program. These include those skill practices, and also academic integration activities are included both in the notebook and also on the online resources. All right, so next let's do Skittles. So in terms of the middle school program, we do go digital come middle school, but this is still teacher-led. And so as McKinley alluded to, in terms of sort of the format of the program, very, very similar. This is actually getting an update this summer. So starting in August this summer, there will be some sort of minor changes. One of the things that we're doing is we're pulling bullying prevention. It's getting its own unit. So that's one of the changes that's happening. There's more information on our website about those changes, but I'm going to be talking about the program as it will be starting August 1st in terms of this update. So a few things to note about the middle school program. On the training aspect, not only is there training normally as we have for teaching the program, but also there's a training that brings teachers through, let's say there's a new teacher in your school, through building a homeroom or advisory period and program. So that training brings them through that process. If they have an advisory program, they can go through that in order to add to their advisory program in proven ways. And then there will be over 200 advisory programs, or activities, I should say, that come along with the middle school program. I'm very happy to say over 200 because until August 1st, we will be at 199. And so I've always had to say almost 200. So with this program, again, once a week lessons, and then move through doing advisory activities for the rest of the week. This also has home link engagement for families, staff tools, everything like that that you've seen in the elementary program as well. The last component of middle school before I move on is that there is a principal toolkit like with elementary that's wrapped into the school-wide license, which also gives you some data on usage for classes at the school so that you'll know where do I need to maybe put more focus and help out to make sure that this program is successful in different classrooms. All
So
right.
when you say data on usage, you mean you would be able to tell if teachers are doing it or not too?
Correct. And so it's done by class. We do it by class, so you'll be able to see, classes created, and really the tool is meant to be something so that you can, see where maybe somebody's struggling, it's taking them a little bit longer, maybe they need a little bit more support, that type of thing.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm. And so for the next one, let's do Starburst. So again, I've gone through a lot of this, but as you can see here also with early learning, the format's a little bit different. I know that's not the focus here, but there you can see sort of a breakdown of what the timing sort of looks like for those lessons broken down by grade band. So with kindergarten, they're a little bit shorter. First through fifth, they get a little bit longer, and then sixth through eighth, they get a little bit shorter. But then again, in sixth through eighth, those advisory activities are a little bit more substantial. They'll only take 5 to 10 minutes, but they're a little bit more involved for those students. And then we add an additional 5 lessons for that bullying prevention unit that we mentioned. With the bullying prevention and the child protection for those grade bands, it fills out an entire calendar year. And so eventually, once you get to implementation with Fidelity, this will start right at the beginning of the school year and run all the way through the end. And so for next, let's do M&Ms. All right, and this is an example of what a week might look like. So we start with the lesson on day 1, and then we've got different activities, and this is for elementary school, so grade 5 here, for each day of the week, as you can see there. So we start with just doing a music video. Again, once you start playing these songs, often the kids will continue with these songs throughout the week, and so you'll hear them as you're walking around in your halls. And then we've got activities for the rest of the day, finally with a reflective writing assignment at the end of the week. And now let's go with Twizzlers. And then we've got reinforcement skills that go along with this. So we mentioned the take-home activities. This is an example of one of those here, the home link, which has a description of what we've talked about in class for parents, and then has an activity that parents can do alongside their kids. There's also, I'd like to call out not only the curriculum connections here, but the book lists are really, really popular. So there's, with each theme in the program, we've got recommendations for books, not only for students and for teachers, but also for parents who are interested. This also calls out Parent Teen Connect down there at the bottom. This is a resource for middle schools. It's one of many free resources on the Committee for Children website. We are a nonprofit, and so alongside Second Step, we also do produce a fair amount of completely free content. Right now, all of that's compiled on a COVID response page so that it's easy to find where we can kind of get those resources and then send them home to parents. And so this is something that you could even, if you'd like, look at this for this year. A few of these things are really, really small lifts, and parents might appreciate them. Parent Teen Connect is fantastic. Basically what it is we took real circumstances that middle schoolers go through all the time and that their parents deal with all the time. And we interviewed both students or kids in that grade band and also their parents about each specific scenario. So whether it was, screen time or bullying or what have you. And then lastly, we interviewed experts in the field on this. And so they're all compiled in one place. And this was all done by the same people who built our middle school program. And actually, a few of these videos are wrapped into that middle school program. And so that's everything that I've got. But I'm happy to answer any questions for anyone who has them.
Well, now you have me rethinking something, so I was glad to hear you today. I may have them do the whole lesson on Monday and activities throughout the week and change our structure. I'm texting Sherry. That structure, I think initially when we started, I thought the lessons were maybe a little longer than they actually are. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I put emails on here. I mean, obviously within the district, we're pretty easy to get a hold of. You guys know where to find us. But I put Noah's email on there as well. And if, yeah, you're welcome to reach out and ask questions. If any of you have a question just right now while we're all here, that's fine. We'll just open it up.
I'll tell the middle school people that my 6th grade has used the middle school program. So if they have any questions on it, I'm sure one of my 6th grade teachers would be happy to talk to them about it as well.
Okay, well, if we don't have I don't know if my wait time was good enough, but anyway, it was lovely to see you all on this wonderful Friday. I hope you're all planning for a lovely weekend that's restful. Now that we're a yellow state as of tomorrow, right? I don't know. Maybe you can do something you haven't been able to do, but still stay healthy, stay out of trouble. But yeah, if just reach out if you've got questions, and we'll just be in touch. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Noah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to send you a thank you. I don't know. All of the, you already listed a bunch of treats that it sounds like you might appreciate, but
yeah, I was a little obvious on my love for candy there, huh?
Yeah, but if I pay postage on a Snickers, I might as well just send you, 10 Snickers for the amount that it would cost to ship it. So.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to come out to Utah once everything is lifted, and who knows what conferences will look like moving forward. I doubt that they'll be normal for a while, but once they are, I'll definitely be out there for that. That was the plan. I was actually hoping to come out this summer, but obviously that's not going to happen anymore. So maybe next year at some point.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, well, thank you for your help.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is a blast.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. No, that was great.
Bye.
And thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see. Stop. Amber, thanks. Good to see you.